Helen Thompson is a writer who has revealed all things beautiful, interesting, and tasty in her years as a journalist. In 2012, she joined Interiors Texas magazine as contributing editor and writer. When she and husband Charles Lohrmann renovated her childhood home in 2008, her knowledge of architectural and interior design came in handy.
There were two things that drove this garden design, and one was the drainage, which was a really, just an urgent problem. But the other thing was I wanted nice views from every room.
Charles, editor-in-chief and publisher of Texas Highways magazine, brings home his impressions too.
One of the major considerations here was a practical one, which was drainage, but we didn't want that to be too obvious.
In this part of Austin, there are wet weather springs and seeps.
The problem was the water then went under the house.
In wet weather, they just kind of bubble to the surface.
First, to deal with wood rot and termite damage and update the old house to newborn efficiency, they worked with builder-remodeler Jerry Santini. To channel seasonal overflow and heavy rains away from the house, Patrick devised a route, including French drains and Cibolo pea gravel, which dispersed the water on its pathway to the back.
Then we started to kind of rebuild the landscape because basically we had to demo the whole front yard. I mean, all the plants, all the grass, soil, everything, so that we could get the water to move away from the house.
To further control water from the street, Patrick and Jerry regraded the intense slope and devised a multi-box approach to raise up the garden.
We wanted to have different levels, so we'd have a different theme sort of in each box. We wanted to differentiate the boxes not only in the heights of the boxes, but in the size of them.
Patrick improved their permeability with a gritty soil blend.
In this part of Austin, the soil is very clay-like and is either really wet or really dry.
Each box gets its own personality with drought-tough, low-maintenance plants and Palisade zoysia. Boxwoods unify and define their enclosures, including resilient roses.
We tried to use very few plants and kind of use masses of them so that it kind of all came together. And so the boxwoods are kind of all throughout the garden, and they kind of tie everything together.
This grid system that he organized makes it seem orderly, even though it's not. Sometimes, the leaves do fall.
This is not quite as stark as most modern gardens. It's very lush, but it's very organized and structured.
Each arena aligns with a section of the house. Patrick dedicated a front portion to annual fern-leaf lavender that survives mild winters.
The monarchs really, when they're migrating, we get little clouds of monarchs around the lavender, and the bees are always at work there too, so that's great.
One bed is for vegetables. At taping time, summer crops were over and winter ones newly installed.
Charles suddenly burst forth and said, "I've always wanted a vegetable garden." Oh, you have? Oh, no. This is the first I've heard of it. And, of course, that's a sunny spot. It's an obvious great place for it. The backyard is very shady.
We've been amazed at how productive just a small space can be.
I feel like gardens like that are real social. People stop by, they want to talk about it, or we'll give them stuff.
It's really great to come out and have a sense of different environments in this small, relatively small space. And then create, like over here, we've created a courtyard there, and which will become more pronounced as these shrubs grow up.
Charles and Helen have their offices facing the side of the house. So we provided a screen with the bamboo, and then we provided kind of a little niche space for them to be able to look out when they're sitting at their desks working and writing. And so they have this kind of little private space that's theirs to enjoy while they're working.
He just was so concerned that I would have something nice to look at. And I do now. And the hummingbirds come out, and it's just and we've watched little cardinals grow up and learn to fly out there. It's just been a really great, really, really lovely thing for me to look at.
Luter's pavers connect it all with a spacious, clean look and firm footing on gravel. Against the house, Patrick didn't replant when he removed grass and overgrown shrubs.
The primary reason was to get the water away from the house, and We didn't want any sprinklers or anything up against the foundation.
Patrick did include a few low-water accents near the entrance. Here, Jerry replaced the old rickety gates with a modern look that fits the home even better. They're ideal to give Helen and Charles a cozy enclosure.
It's got big, deep eaves, and the best time to be in it is in a little soft rain, because you're kind of sheltered. It's great. I love that courtyard. I absolutely love that courtyard.
They widened the driveway and replaced asphalt with pea gravel to absorb even more water. Luder's pavers unify its front door and garden connection. In back, Patrick channeled the street water into a rill to gently disperse it without damaging the neighbors.
It does a lot because the water actually gets to percolate down through the soils and then through the gravel. So there's no rushing water. The gravel is a really good filter, so when the water does get to the rill, it's kind of sort of cleaned out. The privacy issue we dealt with large clumping bamboos and Montezuma cypress trees, mainly because in the wet weather months, the trees and the bamboo can take advantage of it, and Montezuma cypress are also extremely drought tolerant. So in the drier times, they can live without the water. Jerry came up with these trellises that he had made, and they go up about 12, 15 feet, and then we planted evergreen clematis on those and star jasmine, and they kind of run the length of the backyard in sections where we had lots of visibility into the neighbors and vice versa.
There's still some low-water zoysia for rescued Cosmo when he comes outside, now joined by his pal, who Helen and Charles sprung from a puppy mill. It's been a change in more ways than one.
I wasn't that excited about moving back into my childhood home. I hate to admit it, but I wasn't. This garden has made it wonderful. It really has. It's expanded the space of the house. We spend a lot of time even just standing here or sitting here. It's made me happy to be here.
I think the thing is that it's just been a very pleasant yard to spend time.
And I'll come out and walk around. Partly it's just to get some fresh air and to make my eyes adjust to a farther horizon. I will come out here and sit or just walk around and get my head cleared, then go back in and write something really fabulous.